Hello, students. Welcome to the final part of this course. This is the second section of Unit 2, where we are going to discuss Shakespeare's adaptations and translations around the world. Afterlife, adaptation, augmentation, amplification, translation, transformation, transmutation, reimagining, reinvention, revision, recontextualization, re envisioning, or meme, mashup, offshoot, remix, remediation. These terms are just some of the many ways in which critical discussion has engaged with the cultural act of deriving inspiration or material. Shakespeare's plays began to be translated and performed sporadically outside of England from as early as the 17th century. Today, Shakespeare's works have disseminated globally and interculturally. Globally, Shakespeare has become a transhistorical brand, becoming native to other cultures while dramatizing effective histories and cultural memories. The plays have become plural and multifarious, moving beyond the page and stage into film and digital formats. In recent decades, we find post colonial Shakespeare, Chinese Shakespeare, Japanese Shakespeare, Bollywood Shakespeare, even Kurdish or Kashmiri Shakespeare, and so on, all leading to a movement now labeled as Global Shakespeare. Let us discuss this in a bit more detail. Shakespeare's oeuvre is present on every populated continent, including sign language renditions and even recitations in Klingon in the Star Trek movie series. Hamlet is one of the most frequently translated and staged plays in the Arab world. King Lear has a special place in Asian theatre history and Asian interpretations of filial piety. Romeo and Juliet enjoys a global renaissance in genres ranging from punk parody to Japanese manga. The sonnets and the Merchant of Venice have been translated into the Maori of New Zealand and hailed as a major cultural event. By 1934, Shakespeare had been translated into over 200 Indian languages using Indian names and settings. Shakespeare has come to be known as Unsa Shakespeare for the Germans, Sulapani in Telugu, and Shashibiya in Chinese. Isn't this interesting? Let us look at some factors influencing translation or adaptation, two terms that we are going to use interchangeably during this lecture. Wars, censorship, and political ideologies can suppress or encourage the translation of particular plays or genres for one reason or another, or outlaw Shakespeare altogether. For example, the 1930s is a time when the political expediency drove readers, performers, and audiences to a select set of Shakespearean plays in the Soviet Union, Japan, and China. The regicide and assassinations in Hamlet raised the eyebrows of the Japanese censors in the decade when Japan was preparing to challenge European and American supremacy. Hamlet was banned, along with a dozen other left wing plays, at the International Theatre Day organized by the Japan League of Proletarian Theatres on February 39, 32, on the ground that the play may motivate rebellions against the rightist government. The tragedies and some comedies are more frequently translated, staged, and filmed around the world because of the capacity to be more easily detached from the native cultural settings and the self reinforcing cycle of familiarity. In India, for example, Hamlet and The Merchant of Venice have been translated more than 50 times, and The Comedy of Errors has over 30 versions in different languages in India. But the only history plays to have been translated into Hindi are Henry V and Richard II, and only one version each. 2009 witnessed the publication of a 748-page critical anthology with a title that parallels and talks back to the 69-page quarto of 1609. William Shakespeare's sonnets for the first time globally reprinted, a quarter centenary anthology with a DVD containing samples of the sonnets translated, performed, or parodied in more than 70 languages and dialects. Now, who are Shakespeare's translators come adapters? Many of the translators of Shakespeare's plays and sonnets are major figures in the world of letters in and beyond their own cultures. August Wilhelm von Schlegel and Paul Celan in Germany, Boris Pasternak in Russia, Chuboshi in Japan, Liang Shikyu in Taiwan, Julius K. Nyeri in Tanzania, Amy Césaire in Martinique, Rabindranath Tagore in India, Voltaire in France, Elias Abu Shabake in Syria, Boris Soyinka in Nigeria, Charles Emery Lamb in England, and countless others. There are numerous stage and film directors, painters, composers, choreographers, and artists as well who engage and transform Shakespeare. This brings us to a very important question of what presence of translation do we find within Shakespearean texts? Indeed, Shakespeare's plays, the figure of translation looms large in them. Translational movements create comic relief and heighten the awareness that communication is not a given. Translation also served as a metaphor for physical transformation or transportation. Claudius speaks of Hamlet's quote unquote transformation and asks Gertrude to quote unquote translate Hamlet's behavior in the previous scene, which is the closet scene, so that Claudius can quote unquote understand the profound heaps unquote. In response, Gertrude not only relays what Hamlet has just done, but also provides her interpretations as a translator would of her son's deeds. Again, the idea of translation is given a spin in A Midsummer Night's Dream, where the verb to translate is expansive and elastic, signifying transformations most wondrous and strange. Upon seeing Bottom turn into an ass headed figure, Peter Quince cries in horror. I quote, "Bless thee, Bottom, bless thee, thou art translated." Unquote. Let us look at some intermediate translations of Shakespeare that have taken place. Verdi transformed Othello into Otello, an Italian opera. John Alfred Millet's painting Ophelia depicts the tragic death of Ophelia is so memorable that it has become iconic, supplementing, if not replacing, the passages about Ophelia's demise in Hamlet in popular imaginations. Shakespearean dramas were, in fact, important sources for many Victorian painters. Finally, let us look at three very interesting contemporary experimentations in the adaptation of Shakespeare's plays. Three adaptations of King Lear that present the play in monolingual, bilingual, and multilingual formats. These works share the same conviction to link Lear to contemporary Asian cultures and political history. At the same time, they are set apart from one another by their distinctive approaches to the problem of self identity in Lear and in contemporary culture. Taiwan based director and actor Wu Xingqiu's solo Beijing opera adaptation in Mandarin Chinese titled Lear is Here, produced in 2001, is a postmodern pastiche of 10 characters, including Wu himself as a character. Please note that this play is multilingual and it is in Mandarin Chinese. The theme of generational gap in King Lear also lends itself to experiments with languages. Chinese British director David Say staged a Mandarin English bilingual version of King Lear in 2006. So, this is a bilingual version which is in both Mandarin and English languages. This was produced in 2006 with his London based Yellow Earth Theatre in collaboration with Shanghai Dramatic Arts Center. The third version is the Singaporean director Ong Keng Sen's Pan Asian multilingual production of Lear in the year 1997. This brings national and regional identities to the fore. Akin to visual poetry, the production featured actors from several different Asian countries performing in different Asian languages and performance styles representing their countries of origin. So, this multilingual experimentation of one play by Shakespeare kind of sums up the global scale and the global treatment that Shakespeare has received over cultures and over generations and even over different media. That is the end of this lecture. Thank you so much.